welcome to Sunrise Extra Wednesday.
Yes, it is.
Woo-hoo.
I'm
What are we,
texting my
people?
mother right now.
You are?
Yeah.
What are you telling old Karen?
Well, you just call my mother old?
Well, I mean...
Want to step outside now, huh?
Karen. What are you texting, Karen?
My mom was watching the show on the stream this morning, and we had that segment on the Globetrotters,
Yes.
of course. And
Does she love it?
She goes, "I'll stop feeling bad now that I never took you to see the Globetrotters when you were a kid."
You've more than made up for it.
We definitely talked about it. I remember growing up. We discussed the idea of going to see the Globetrotters, but for some reason we never saw those fellas.
I saw them at the Coliseum back in the day. And I was sad that Meadowlark Lemon and Curly and those guys weren't there. I didn't know as a little kid that they had a whole different bunch of players that traveled around.
Yeah, there's an asterisk on their website that says all the players listed here may not be in your hometown on the date that your game is being played.
There was no website when I saw the Globetrotters.
That was the nice thing about growing up in New York. I always got the 18.
Jay
Cameron
behind the
Jay
camera.
said, yeah, he
Jay
got the
got the
A-team
18.
growing up in New York. Fancy schmancy.
I'm going to find this dark
All right,
post.
so maybe we should
Yeah,
get into the
we're not
topic at
talking
hand.
about that. Yes.
I'm sorry I got us off course with my mother speak.
It's what we love most about you.
What are we talking about? There is University of Missouri is launching a new app, and if my internet was faster, I would be able to tell you what that app is called. But it is all about
Spotter, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Spotter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's to track. This is college again. Students' attendance in class, saying, "Duh, the more you go to class, like probably the better grades you get.
You think?
The better you do."
I want the funding for that research.
Right. So they're doing this experiment, and a couple other schools are experimenting with it too. And according to the Kansas City Star newspaper, they say that 2 classrooms on campus, the teachers volunteered their classrooms to try out this app. And the students don't have a choice in it. So apparently, somehow, they're going to make the students download this app on their phones, and they put this like little beacon at the door of the class you're supposed to be in, and once you cross your phone with Bluetooth on, past the beacon or through the door or whatever, it checks you in as being in class. And they say that that technology prevents it. It's not tracking their location when they're outside of that class.
It's not a GPS, is
Correct.
what the
That's what
app
the
says.
app says and the school says. ACLU says, this sounds a little hinky.
Right.
We don't like the sound of it. I think this is BS because you can't make someone download an app on their phone if they don't want to. I don't understand how the school can force students.
I don't know about that, but I do think this is interesting because you mentioned the ACLU, and that's one of the things that stood out to me in this article. A woman from the ACLU says anytime you use surveillance technology, the question is always who is watching the watcher, like monitoring which students are participating in protests, perhaps. Are students being tracked wherever they go on campus? Again, they say no, but the ACLU worries about that. She also worries about who might gain access to that information.
Yeah, because I guess if you think about it, you could move those little beacons. If there is a protest, just put them around the perimeter. You see exactly who goes in and who's in that area at that time.
And beyond that, I was asking these guys, I'm like, did you ever take attendance at a college course?
Yeah, it's called pop quiz.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to those?
Yeah.
That's how you take attendance. You fail enough pop quizzes, you're out, dude.
Yeah, you weren't here for the quiz. I don't know where you were, but we had one.
You know, Ron
like
Hill's
you're
got to have
paying
something to
for
say
it.
about this, because this is his alma mater, Mizzou.
Oh, right.
We all went to pretty big universities. Chris, Penn State. I imagine you had some huge classes. Temple.
1,000 plus.
That's the largest school in Pennsylvania is Penn State. Temple was the second largest school. So, there would be some in an auditorium where there were hundreds of kids, right? But I did have a health class once. It was a diet class. It was like towards the end of my college career, and I stopped going to a lot of classes, to be honest with you. It wasn't very responsible of me. But I did have this teacher who asked me to come see her in her office, and it was very high school-like. Where she said, asked me, how come you're not coming to class?
I've noticed you're not here.
How do you expect to pass this class? And she was, more importantly, aren't you concerned about your health moving forward? Like, this is important stuff, for your life.
She went ethically.
And I'm thinking, who is she to tell me?
She
just
cared.
a 22-year-old person.
Yeah.
But she did care. And I look back at that class. I remember what she said. And I remember now, like, man, she was saying the right things. Like, I was making terrible diet choices back then. You know, I wasn't thinking about, like,
Everybody is
I know,
then,
but you know what I mean? Like, at some point, you have to turn the table and eat better. Some of us have to do it in our early 20s. Some of us can get away with it for a few more years. But ultimately, I remember when I started to get a little big in the belly and the neck, I'm thinking, damn it, she was right. I'm not thinking about what I'm eating.
Yeah.
So this actually started, I was reading farther down in this article, it was started by somebody in the athletic department years ago.
They make
and he
athletes do
went to a high school, and the kid that he went to recruit was skipping school. And he thought, if we bring that kid to our university, how are we going to keep track of him or her? And so he developed the app. He developed this, and then when he came back, they put it into practice.
But don't you expect them to be an adult at some point? You're out of the nest. You make choices, and choices have consequences. And why do you have to? There's got to be some other.
I have to say I've seen it
punishment
both ways, because
for-
there are some amazing scholar athletes, and then there are some other athletes that come into their freshman year of college at a remedial level, and they don't have any of those academic skills, and if they're struggling, perhaps the department does want to know and tap. And they said that they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in human resources, having people show up at class to track especially the athletes.
Yeah.
And so this is an easy way for them
And
to
as
do
an-
it, they argue.
As an athletic department, you have a big investment in that kid. So you
And maybe
I
the
can
kid
see-
signs, okay, yes, I'm going to have this app. But like any old person, you're paying tuition. You are over 18 years old. You're an adult. I mean, I just
Your
can't
parents are paying
understand how they
tuition,
can
most
make,
likely, yeah.
If a student doesn't want to do this, they
They didn't really
don't
address
have to
that
do
in
it.
the article, as
No,
far
not
as I
at all.
can find.
And
they did not
didn't
say.
interview any students at that school.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
No, they
As an-
interviewed. They
they-
cited a Washington Post student from a completely different school.
Okay,
about
so
something.
that's right. Virginia Commonwealth University sophomore, is that the one you're
Yeah,
talking
it's called the
about?
Washington Post.
Which I thought he made such a fabulous point. It's like, why is this necessary? How does this benefit us? And is it just going to keep progressing until we are micromanaged
Right.
every second
That
of the
kid
day?
is not a kid. He's an adult.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that mindset. He's like, I got it. I don't need this.
In my first job in this business, there was like, you're either, like hourly paid or you're salary paid. And it can go either way in this job. And in my first job, we were salary paid, but for some reason we had to fill out a weekly time card as well. It didn't affect our pay whatsoever. But I don't understand the reasoning by it, but we had to fill it out by hand, and they didn't want you to write down any overtime. You had to just write down your 8 hours per day, and they didn't want any more than that on there. No, you weren't going to get paid overtime, but they just didn't want it handwritten on there, and then you had to sign your name. And we worked tons of overtime for free as our salary. Instead of hourly. And so I refused to I wrote down my real hours because I was signing my name to it, and it got filed who knows where within the general manager's office and corporate and whatever for whatever purpose they wanted, but I wasn't going to sign my name to something that wasn't true.
Accurate, sure.
And so I wrote down every hour over that I wrote, not that I was, gaining anything from it, but I'm that kind of like head butter person of like, well, you're saying I should do this. That's not right. I asked my dad, who's an attorney, and he was like, God damn right, you write down your real hours.
Yeah.
Like, what if there's a lawsuit later by someone who says, maybe you should have been getting paid overtime. Here's your paperwork that you signed your name to of all this. Who knows? Anyway, they kept speaking to me about it. I got called into the office. Nina, you're supposed to just write 8 hours down. I'm like, well, that's not true. I'm not signing my name to that. Either I'm not filling these out or I'm going to do it correctly. And finally, the news director later told me, they're like, oh yeah, they remembered your dad was an attorney and so they stopped bothering you about it, but you're the only one that actually
Good
writes down your
grief.
real hours.
Yeah, that's nuts.
But it's kind of the same way as this. It's just like, I would be that student if I was at that college of like, I'm not downloading this. I mean, not that it has anything.
I love that you, whether it's from your dad or just your own sense that you kind of knew your rights. I went 180 degrees the other way. When I started working, I still had that college mentality, and I would go in, if Monday through Friday I didn't get the special I was working on done, I would then come in. And I was like, okay, I just got to get my assignment done.
Like on the weekend?
And on the weekend or whenever, and I would never clock in, and we were hourly. And somebody pulled me aside in management, like, that's illegal. You got to clock in when you come in here and work.
Good
and I
for
was like,
them.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And skip ahead now to 2020. These two still difficult to manage today.
That is a true fact.
But very fun to be
Very
with.
fun. We are getting comments about this from our viewers. You may be watching us on YouTube. Some of you watching us on Facebook. I'm looking at the Facebook comments right now.
And I've got YouTube and Twitter, so let us know. Go ahead.
I don't imagine we're going to see any comments that say something like, this is a great idea. So far, I haven't seen that.
I mean, go to class. My God, like, go to class. You're paying for it, or your parents are paying for it, or
Right.
somebody.
Right.
But, yeah, tracking is never a question.
Here's what we are seeing. From Julie Wyatt, for starters. Good morning, Julie. She says, I don't see the point of tracking their movements. If their classwork is good and they pass the tests, then I don't see what the problem is. On the other side of the coin, if they don't get their work up to par, then they fail. I mean, really, we've always thought that is the way college students should be judged and tracked, right? Did you do the work? Did you pass the class?
Yes.
I don't care if you're there or not necessarily. It is weird, right? College, is there anything else like college where you pay so much money and really don't necessarily want to get your money's worth in terms of, like, why would you ever skip class, right? You paid tuition.
I'm sure if the kid is paying for it themselves, they'll...
Well,
you know,
sometimes
maybe
it just
really.
depends.
I mean,
yeah.
no one was paying for my college for me when I was going. I did get some grants, and which was great. And I took out some loans, which was not as great. But the fact is, it wasn't like my parents were paying for me, and yet I still found it
You
some
did it
days.
all 4 years? Like, I was just whatever freshman year, because I was like, I'm out of the house.
I had a bad- I
and then
think
I'm
it-
like, crap, I better buckle down.
I screwed up the second semester. We've talked about this before. I had an incredibly epic second semester at college of poor performance in the classroom. But it was just one semester, and they warned me about it, and we moved on from there. But the point is, I still did not go to class every day, and I thought, like, this is crazy. How much am I paying? And I'm choosing not to be there?
Right.
But it's
But
not
it's
just about the
maturing, right?
academics. College is not just about the class. It is about the growth and the life experience and learning to manage your
Yes.
time and
And
learning
making
to deal
mistakes
with
and learning
people.
from them.
And and so it's a lot of things.
I mean, they wouldn't even, it seems very odd. You wouldn't even track a high school kid, right? I mean, maybe that would be considered illegal because they're underage or they're under 18, but
That is more, like, I'm more okay with that because the parents probably own the phone. They can put whatever app they want on there. And it's a safety issue of, like, where's my young child at who's under 18? Are they at school or are they off skipping and who knows where? But, like, once you're in college, you're an adult. You're out of the house. Like, it's up to you.
So Stanford Walker here is weighing in. Good morning, Stanford. Says, how would you feel if employers tracked you or church? And he says this is a gateway app for big government.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I don't understand this comment from Brenda Autry Yates. What's up, Brenda? She says, not you, Brenda, that Brenda. She says, I don't like going to class. I can get more done at home. Well, I could get a lot
Are you
done at
in
home
school
too
right
if I
now?
stopped going to work. I can get the laundry done, I can get the dishes done, I can get the lawn done. So Brenda, we're asking, are you in class right, or not in class right now, but
Are
you
you
going
supposed to
school?
be in class?
Well, maybe all those materials are offered online, and it's, you just read your syllabus and you read your assignment and you get it done and you check it in and you don't have to deal with traffic and you don't have to deal with whatever, and it's just...
I was reading some of the comments. You didn't mention Cheryl Houghton Young, did you?
No.
It says, as someone whose daughter will leave for college in Seattle on September 1st, or in September, I am happy to have the school help ensure her safety.
Because then the school would
Safety?
know if she's not there. Maybe they would contact you if, hey, your child hasn't
They're
shown
not
up in
going to
class.
contact you if she's not in class.
How about this? Christine Lewis says, I can see it being a scholarship requirement, like we talked about earlier. If these colleges are paying for a student to go to class, then they
Yes.
would have a vested interest in their attendance. But even then, I'm thinking to myself, do I still care to that regard? Because I would think, hey, here's your scholarship. Here's your opportunity. show up at class. And if you stop going to class and you fail the class, then you lose the scholarship.
Then you screw up
There's the
my
accountability right
program.
there.
Yeah, and that's you know
Right,
you
and
know
that's
about
my
it ahead of
vested
time, and you
interest.
agree like, okay, I'll put this app on my phone, and yes, like, and of course you could take sick days and skip class a couple of times. I'm sure there's some number, but I mean, if you're gone for 3 days at a time or a week or whatever.
Are you okay with this scenario where I said, I never went to the class, but my best friend went every day, and he was more than happy to share his notes with me, and I studied from his notes, and I went when it was required to take the final exam, and I did great on it, and I got an A. How do you feel about that scenario? I never went to the class, borrowed the friend's notes, studied them, went to class the final day. I was told there was only going to be one test. It was the final. It meant everything. I took it and passed. Are you okay with that, students?
I'd be mad if I was the friend.
No, there was an agreement.
Well, they
were
did all
okay
the
with it.
work.
Maybe they got paid. Who knows? I don't know what the agreement was entirely. But you know what I mean? Like, do you have to go to class as a college student? Is that the requirement in order to do well?
I don't know. Is it participation based? I
No,
mean, I
that's-
guess you could do that in some ways. And if the bottom line is the grade, if
Right.
that's the bottom line, that's the bottom line.
I still have nightmares, like that I missed a paper or there's a test.
I
Like,
do
I still
too.
wake up and I'm like,
Every
or
blue
at
moon.
Jesuit, like I can't remember my locker combination, and I have like a couple minutes to get to class.
Math 141
Because if
over
we
here.
were,
man.
I
Calculus
mean, at
class.
private
Oh,
school,
stop
like
that
if you
news.
weren't in class and that bell rang, and you walked in afterwards, you were in trouble.
Well, in high school.
And I still like wake up sometimes and like, I don't know my locker combination. I don't know what like period math is or something. And I'm like, phew.
I have dreams about this place.
Same.
That's the nightmares I
You do?
have. Yeah, like
Oh.
where I'm out doing a live report, say, for something, and we have these earpieces that we wear in our ear to kind of keep track of the show, and also our producer can always talk to us to let us know if you are live in the field, hey, you're 3 minutes away or whatever. So in my dream, I'm out there wearing one of these, and we're so far away from where we're supposed to be, and suddenly, a producer gets into my ear and says, hey, you're 2 minutes away. And I'm thinking, 2 minutes away? It will take me 3 hours to get there. like I'm nowhere near where I need to be. And my friends are like, what are we going to do? And they're just full on panic. Like, oh my gosh, it feels like I'm going to die.
We need
You
a
have those
dream
work
analyst
dreams
here.
or like school dreams at all?
But
I do have
You
school
do?
dreams.
I-
Every blue moon. You know what I dreamt last night? It's so funny that we're talking about this now. My assignment was to, boy, this is a throwback, interview the entire cast of Lost.
Huh.
And so that was, and Chad and I actually were on the assignment.
There's Chad.
Yes.
Chad, stand up. You're being referred to on the street.
I was kind of bummed when I woke
Wait
up.
up.
I'm like, I
Stand up.
love Lost.
Where's our dream
There he
analyst?
is. Chad.
J.R. Raven on YouTube has the same dream about not remembering the locker combination. Thank you.
Gosh, that was
Remember your
my
homeroom
terror
number?
in junior high school
Oh.
when everybody got.
Oh, from
No.
What was it?
My high school homeroom
Yeah.
was 222. And I remember the first day of freshman year, that teacher, he was a math teacher, but he was our homeroom teacher, he said, homeroom number's 222, boys. I tell you right now, you'll never forget 222. That number will stick with you for the rest of your life. Because we had that room
right.
for 4 years, right?
Okay, okay.
So, and I was thinking,
for 4 years.
yeah, we had the same homeroom for 4 years. And I remember thinking, why would I remember that number? But here I am, 30 years later, telling you what the number was.
I have
right.
no idea what my homeroom was.
Well, it changed
No.
every year. Oh,
well.
me.
My recurring night, it's not quite the same, but my recurring nightmare, like not frequently, but like is being on the starting line of a race, looking down and having my shoes untied.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right? And then everyone just takes off ahead of you.
Stress dreams.
You're ready to go, like, oh.
I've avoided that nightmare by not running.
Oh, that would be another Drew's 7,000
I also
reasons
hate
not to
running.
run.
I do believe, though, that you've never done an actual K, right? Like some kind of
Heck
K.
no, never will.
I have done that, and I know Brenda's done that. Chris certainly.
A
has done
what?
that. Like any kind of race with a K. attached to it.
Okay, yeah.
A 5K, an 8K, a 10K.
0.01K.
Yeah. I did the Bridge to Bruise one year, and it was
Okay.
fun.
Yeah.
So I've done the one. Go after it.
I will stay at 0.
Okay.
We have some more comments on our Facebook. Cheryl Berger says, I don't think colleges should spending time tracking students. She wants colleges to spend their time sharing opportunities to learn. At some point, children become adults and accept responsibilities. This is their chance to mature.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally
agree.
agree with that point.
This the tracking, man. It's too much. Like, what? It is. It's just Big Brother. It's too much, like...
Well, a couple of our viewers have referenced specifically this being too much like 1984,
Right.
the novel, right, by George Orwell,
yeah.
which I haven't read 1984. I don't know if any of you have. Oh, Jessica, you have?
I've read the Haruki Murakami version.
I don't know if Jessica is in all of your ears, but she was in mine saying, what? You never in 1984, it was required reading. Not where I went to school, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But there was also the movie, 1984, that came out around 1984, that I didn't see either.
I haven't seen it.
And then there was Van Halen, had a really great album, 1984.
In the year 1984, it had the baby angel with a cigarette in
It was
its
completely unrelated.
hand and a pack of cigarettes next to the...
But it had Jump, so that was good.
So Carol Armstrong Chadwick says that is just wrong. I would call it an invasion of their privacy. If they want to waste their money by not attending what they are paying for, then it's nobody's business. Now, if their college education is a freebie and the taxpayers are paying for their education, that's a whole different story.
Doesn't it seem, okay, just take out the personal feeling about, you know, privacy or your rights or whatever. Just step back for a second. Like, all of these things to me seem like, in a vacuum, oh, that's a great idea. It's easy for organization and tracking this and whatever. If you're looking at it from the perspective, never mind privacy or so, like
do it for a study.
it seems like
you know,
organization
where the students sign
and
the
like
thing
so
and
that
they're all
part of me
into
is
it.
like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, look at the data that we can
Right.
like
Do
that.
it as an
Right.
a study of like, okay, here we're tracking these 2 classrooms, you know, 2 chemistry labs with this app, and 2 chemistry labs without the app. Like,
And the students all
but I
agreed
mean,
to be
really,
to be
yeah, and the
participants.
students have to agree and like sign the waiver, but you can't make them do it.
Lisa
Unless
Pinot.
they're athletes where they are okay, I agree as part of, you know, this athletic
Scholarship.
contract or a scholarship or whatever.
Lisa Pinot, watching on the stream right now, she says she likes it as an optional idea, kind of along the same line. She says, you know, there could be some benefits to this type of app. Maybe there would be a text feature that would tell you something like your class starts in 30 minutes, you know, reminders of that nature. Other people are responding much more simply. Dave Shedler, nope. That's all he says, nope.
Yeah, nope.
Not gonna do it.
I just don't understand how they can do it anyway. But that article was not very thorough in that regard of
Yeah.
like how they can
Investigating
make
the
them.
law.
Yes.
Has anyone read a Ginny Carlson comment yet today? Have we
No,
No.
I
got
haven't.
one?
Jenny,
I got
what's up?
I got a Ginnyism.
What'd she say?
Go
Ginny
for it.
says it's an ethics issue and really a crisis in our country where people used to do the right thing without being watched. Now apparently we think they can't. This is sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, as a member of the slightly newer generation, doesn't anybody like take a little bit of offense to that? Just like what everybody used to do the right thing back in the day, and now we don't.
I don't see her comment as that. I just see her saying like, now we're trying to enforce people to do
We
the
just
right
have easier
thing.
ways to do it.
Right.
Hey, while you weren't looking, none of us are in the younger generation any longer. We're not even.
that's
You
true.
can't even be offended.
We're out of
That's
it.
true.
We're not part of the younger generation.
You're younger.
What is the millennial?
Younger-ish.
What is the most? 1980.
Oh,
Ooh,
You're
I
80.
just snuck in.
You're 80.
I'm 80.
80. So you are a millennial, yes. My wife's an 80. That's how I know it's.
All right.
That's
They didn't even come out with the word millennial until what? 10 years ago, maybe?
Yeah.
You are what you are.
You're a
Millennial.
Cusp, man.
On the cusp.
Bye, you guys. We'll see you on Thursday. Thanks for chatting with us.